Good afternoon. It's Joan from Joan's Kitchen. It's a beautiful day here in Leucadia, California. The sun is shining and it's warm. It's not too humid. It's beautiful. And it's a great day to make a salad. Today I am making an arugula salad, which is from a restaurant that was in Florence. This restaurant came to do a dinner at my favorite restaurant in Evanston, Illinois that was called Va Pensiero. And I'm going to be demonstrating how to make it. It's a great salad with ingredients that you can easily get anywhere here in the States, and I think you'll really enjoy it. As always, if you have any questions, please pop them into the comment box and I will do my best to answer them. If it comes through live, I'll see if I can answer it for you live. If you're watching this on a recording, please pop it in the message box or the comment box anyway, and I will do my best to get back to you with that. So, this salad is an arugula salad. Arugula is kind of a green. It's actually in the same family as Brussels sprouts and broccoli, even though we use it here more like a lettuce. And arugula goes back, they think, to even Roman times. There's writings about it in Roman manuscripts. We think it originated in the Middle East. Typically here in the U.S., you're going to find it in a clamshell package like this. I've already taken my arugula out and washed it. I always rewash my lettuces and leaves, even if it says that they're washed, just because I like to make sure that they're nice and clean. So arugula is the main ingredient. We're also going to have olive oil to dress the salad. The salad dressing is very simple with olive oil and lemon. So it's a lemon vinaigrette. We've got our olive oil, and then this is going to be the acid for our recipe today. This also has some tomatoes in it. I'm using grape tomatoes today. It has chopped avocado. It has pine nuts, and pine nuts are actually the nuts that are found in pine cones. They come in pine cones. They'll come like in a little hard covering. They look almost like a little Brazil nut, and you have to crack it really hard with a hammer to get this little teeny tiny nut out, which is part of the reason that they are so expensive. Pine nuts are also one of the main ingredients in traditional pesto. And we're also going to be using Parmesan cheese in this today. And those are all the ingredients. So I'm going to go ahead and get going here. The first thing I'm going to do is to make my vinaigrette. I have my olive oil already measured out, and this is beautiful olive oil that I brought home from my last trip to Abruzzo. You want to use a really good quality olive oil in here because the olive oil with the peppery taste of the arugula, it just really balances it very, very nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and put my olive oil in here. And then I'm going to have my lemon juice. I've already got my lemon juice squeezed, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. And I'm going to mix that up with a fork. So as I mentioned, arugula, we believe, goes back to the Roman times. Arugula is actually very easy to cultivate. It's grown from seeds, and it actually withstands cold temperatures. So it can do very well here in the States. I know a lot of people who actually grow it in their gardens. It's also called rucola in Italy. In England, they call it rocket, and in France, it's called roquette, R-O-Q-U-E-T-T-E. It comes in leaves that are kind of shaped like this. It's probably kind of hard to see, but I would best describe it as like a long, narrow oak leaf. It almost looks like a leaf from a scrub oak, and it has a very distinctive flavor. It has kind of, I would say, more of a peppery flavor. These leaves also stand up really well to dressing, unlike other kinds of lettuces that can get soggy once you dress the salad. So I'm just going to go ahead and put all this stuff in here. You'll notice that I did the salad dressing in the bottom of the salad bowl. I like to do that. I find it easier to get the salad all mixed when I do that rather than pouring the salad dressing on top. The salad also has avocado. I've already cut my avocado up. It's just chopped into chunks like this, so I'm going to go ahead and just put that in there. The original recipe actually called for canned hearts of palms, which I don't really care to put that canned stuff in there, so I'm not using that today. I also like for this recipe to put a little bit of salt on the arugula leaves. I just find that it adds some really nice flavor to the arugula. Arugula is typically eaten raw the way we're eating it today in the salad, but it can also be cooked. There are some sauces in Italy where it's put into cooked tomato sauce, and it's also sometimes served with potatoes, with cooked potatoes. And if you ever have carpaccio, which is really good beef steak that's sliced really thin when it's raw and served cold, that would typically be served on a bed of arugula along with some Parmesan and maybe some really good balsamic vinegar. This leaf caused a little bit of a controversy during the 2007 presidential campaign. Barack Obama was visiting farmers in Iowa, and he complained about the high price of arugula in Whole Foods, and that started off kind of a firestorm about arugula being an elitist vegetable. And I found an article today that mentioned that at the time arugula and kale were about equal in popularity. Since that time, which is 13 years ago, kale has taken off in popularity. A lot of people use kale in all different kinds of things, but kale is a very different animal. Kale is good. Personally, I don't care for it raw. You have to treat it very differently, and there's even people who will massage the kale to get it to be the right consistency for eating easily. Arugula is fine. I mean, especially if you get the baby arugula, you can just eat it the way it is. You don't have to do anything to it. You can eat the stems, and in my opinion, it has a better flavor. To me, the kale tastes like cabbage, which is fine. It is a form of cabbage, but I really like the arugula in this recipe. I'm also going to be using some tomatoes in here. I've got grape tomatoes, and I'm cutting them in half. You could also use a regular tomato, just chopped up into pieces. And the reason I'm putting in here tomato is because of the visual appeal. I kind of like having the red and the greens, and then we're going to have some white from the Parmesan cheese in there in just a moment. So the Parmesan cheese I wanted to talk about also. This is the Parmesan cheese here, and I prefer to use real Parmesan cheese from Italy, which technically is not Parmesan. It's Parmigiano Reggiano because it's from the Parma region and the Reggiano regions of Italy. And it's one of those Italian products that the Parmigiano Reggiano name can only be used for the cheese that's produced in Italy. The name Parmesan, it's legal to use for Parmesan style cheeses that are produced here. So for example, Wisconsin produces a Parmesan cheese that's good. Personally, I just prefer the cheese that's from Italy. It has a very strong, distinctive flavor. It's a hard cheese. Typically we would have it shredded or grated, and you can actually grate it in the food processor. That's probably the most efficient way to do it. For this particular recipe, we're going to shave it. So I have a vegetable peeler here, and I've got my Parmesan sitting here on a cutting board, and I'm just running my vegetable peeler across it to get these really tiny, smooth shavings of the Parmesan. And I've already done some of that in advance, so I'm going to go ahead and put that on here. Parmesan, because of the really strong flavor, is one of the foods that's called umami. And umami is a Japanese word. It's for the fifth sense, the sense of deliciousness when you eat something. And Parmesan is rich in a chemical compound called glutamates, which is something that gives it such a strong flavor. A little Parmesan goes a long way. As I mentioned, it is really good just for eating. It's a really hard cheese. I like to just kind of take a knife or a fork and kind of like chip some off like this into chunks. If you're going to be grating it, as I mentioned, put it in the food processor with a steel blade, cut it into about 1-inch chunks, and then just pulse it, and you'll get basically like ground Parmesan rather than grated Parmesan. It's a much easier way to do it than doing it by hand because this is a very hard cheese. Authentic Parmigiano Reggiano comes in a big wheel, and the end of the wheel is going to be stamped with the name of the cheese on there, the Parmigiano Reggiano. And one of the things when you're buying it in the store, try to find one that only has the edge on one side of it instead of on two sides. And this depends on where they cut it from in the wheel of the cheese. It's just, you get more cheese for your money if you're doing it that way, and it's a very expensive product. So the last thing that I'm going to do here is toss in my pine nuts, and then I'm going to toss my salad. And I like to use just regular old tongs to toss this. As I mentioned, the arugula leaves stand up very well to dressing, so even though I've dressed the salad, it can stand for a while and it'll still be tasty later. The leaves aren't going to wilt in the salad dressing the way some other kinds of leaves do. I mean, think about if you have a Caesar salad with romaine lettuce, that's typically, the lettuce is going to be wilted after it's dressed. It's just not going to stand up to it. This one, since it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon here, I'm not going to be eating this for a while. I'm going to cover it up and put it in the refrigerator, and it'll be fine when we're ready to eat supper a little bit later on. So I'm going to get these jumper leaves back in here, and that is it. This is our arugula salad with a lemon vinaigrette. And I'm going to hold this up to the camera so that you can see it. I'm going to ask one last time if anybody has any questions about this recipe today. Again, the ingredients are very easy to find here in the States. You should be able to find anything you like. If you can't find arugula, you could definitely substitute spinach. Spinach will wilt under the dressing and give a different flavor. No doubt it would still be really good. But for me, the flavor combination of the arugula and the lemon and the pine nuts, the avocado, and especially the cheese just comes together in a really brilliant recipe that I really enjoy, and I think that you will too. So for today, that's it from Joan's Kitchen. I will see you again next week. I hope that you all have a lovely week. Ciao for now.